Welcome to Slashback Cinema, the podcast where we rewind to the glory days of 70s and 80s horror movies. I am Shawnee Luft.
And I'm Ryan Dreimiller.
We miss those iconic classic and cheesy horror films from our childhood, from slashers to the supernatural. So we are here to rewatch the classics that made us scream, or maybe cringe a little bit, or maybe roll our eyes or have questions while we find out if they still pack a punch or just make us laugh. Ryan, what is on the menu for today?
Today we're going to watch a true holiday gift to all of us and all you listeners. It's Don't Open Until Christmas from 1984, directed by Edmund Purdom, and actually starred Edmund Purdom. This was definitely an obscure B cult grindhouse. Somebody described this one as a sleaze fest.
Yes.
Which was a pretty accurate description.
Yeah, so I think you were the one who recommended this. How did you even come across? I never heard of this movie.
I never heard of it either, and we were doing research into what are we going to watch for our holiday run here for our Christmas-themed horror movies. It just popped up in one random search. I'd never heard of it or seen it before, and then I watched the trailer, and I was like, oh my god, we're adding this one to the cart.
Yes, it definitely fits in. Obviously, it's from the 80s. It's like right in that sweet spot of slashers. Like this is a time period where Halloween's and Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Streets were the rage, so this movie fit in. Although, I mean, we were interested in those kinds of movies, and this movie never reached us in Reisterstown, Maryland.
Did not. And I don't even remember seeing this one in the video store. Like some of these that we've been watching, I remember seeing it on the shelves or having been aware of it, but this one, not at all. And I don't know if that's because it was actually a British slasher film or just the fact that it was so bad and low budget that that could be a piece of it.
I was going to suggest my theory is that it's terrible. That's why we never heard of it, because video stores did not want to rent it. Although, as I looked into it, what surprised me is people who are obsessed with slasher movies from the 80s, this movie has a beloved place in some people's hearts. There's YouTube videos of people like waxing on about this movie and the making of it and the producer and director and all that stuff. You want to... summarize the plot of Don't Open Till Christmas?
The plot on this one is pretty straightforward. A murderer is running loose through the streets of London, and he's hunting down men who are dressed as Santa and killing them all. And extremely violent in different ways. And this Inspector Harris character, he decides he's going to take on the task of solving this mystery of who's the serial killer. So it's got a little bit of that whodunit murder mystery overlaid to this one also.
These slasher movies, I never really thought of them as whodunits where you care about who the killer is. But I realized it's not why so many of these killers wear masks, because part of the excitement is like the reveal of who the actual murderer is. I always thought the slashers wore masks because they seem more menacing. But this is the second one in a row. And Friday the 13th had that same quality. The first one, the killer is not wearing a ski mask yet, but more like kind of a hood over her face. And you find out in the first movie, it's actually the mother of Jason Voorhees. So like the reveal of who the killer is actually part of the plot. And I hadn't realized that was kind of like part of the genre of slasher movies, that you give a crap who the murderer is.
I was reading a review on this one. They had dumped it into, there's all these little sub genres. When you start going deep on this stuff, they start chopping it up, like you're saying, in terms of, oh, this one's this type of movie.
Yeah.
This one they referred to, and I'm going to butcher this, it's Italian for the word yellow, Giallo or whatever. It's Giallo. And it was these pulp murder mystery literary genres, and they went back to like the 30s, and it was these crime mysteries, somebody's killing somebody. They were not high quality literature, but they were sort of that pulpy fun stuff. So this one kind of fits in there, and it's like the whodunit, and it's kind of the black glove psychopathic killer, and he's taking out the women. This one gets tossed into that category.
The only thing I looked up about this movie before we started watching it was that the killer is killing Santa Clauses. And already I find that kind of, that feels like a plot hole to me. It doesn't seem very well constructed. First of all, if your killer is killing people dressed as Santa Claus, your whole plot has to revolve around coming up with a lot of people dressed as Santa Claus inexplicably. I don't know that back in the 80s there was just a lot of people walking around in Santa Claus outfits. It just doesn't seem like that there would be that many potential victims. The other problem with the Santa Claus murderer plot line is when you're watching a movie like this, you're kind of like, I think, supposed to be anxious, like, what if this could happen to me? But I have never dressed as Santa Claus, and so I thought, I'll be fine. This guy is only killing Santa Clauses. I'm Jewish. I've never dressed as Santa Claus. He would literally just pass me by. So yeah. I feel like once that is your plot point, I mean, it would have made more sense for the killer to dress as Santa. But if he's going to be killing Santas, yeah, you're just watching a lot of very bad Santa outfits. The beards never quite fit correctly. They're never fat guys. Are they not aware that Santa is supposed to be very chubby?
It did stick out to me, too, that maybe it was a different time in London. Like, there was a lot of drunk Santas in the sleaziest part of London, hanging out in these dark alleys, like roasting chestnuts or just drunk wandering the streets, and perfect for a serial killer to take them out. That was a note that someone had made, that typically these Christmas slasher films are the ones that kind of deal with Santa. It's Santa turned evil that is doing the killing.
I gotta say, I had a hard time following the plot of this movie. It was so janky, and I realized reading about the movie that the reason it feels so disorienting is after the movie finished, the producers evidently decided there weren't enough murders in it, so they just stick in a bunch of really random murders. It opens where 2 people get stabbed for no reason at all, and then throughout the movie, several people get stabbed who you have never seen before in the movie. So while you're watching, just random person gets killed, random person gets killed. And I thought, am I supposed to know who that is or what is happening? But I think they needed to up their body count. So the movie has this feeling jumping around from scene to scene in a disorienting way. I found it really hard to follow the plot and who some of the characters were. There were some plot lines that seemed to go nowhere.
Building on what you're saying, the Edmund Purdom, if you look him up, he was this well-known Hollywood actor who sort of, his career taken a fall or been on this descent from like peak Hollywood A-lister to he was living in Italy or Europe doing these B movies. And so this was his first shot at directing, which clearly that shows in this movie.
Yes.
But he had also left, and then it had been rewritten. And then it is almost 2 films in terms of there's the front half and then there's the back half where it's got a totally different feel. It's shot differently. But then what you're talking about, the chaos, my note on this was it felt like less of a true movie in storyline and plot versus it had the feel of like a gestural sketches or like it was like this scene here and this one here, but they're not connected. And really the only thing keeping this movie connected is the fact that it's Santa being murdered in horrific ways. That's sort of pacing to this film.
And then the thing you just said, I think, is really important, that the star of the movie and the director, Edmund Purdom, quit the movie while they were making it. So the star and the director left at the same time, and then they kept filming it. But then he came back at the end. Yeah. So this is definitely one of those movies where what is happening behind the scenes of the movie is actually a better story than what's actually on film. It took 2 years to make this movie, which blows me away. I would have guessed, had you not told me that, they filmed this in a weekend.
Yeah.
The stabs, every one of them, I feel like is inadvertently funny for multiple reasons. They're funny because, did you notice, like, when a person dies, you see this right in the very first scene, the killer, he just, like, kind of pokes at somebody and with clearly a knife with, like, a little bit of blood at the end. And the guy who gets stabbed goes, oh, and then falls down with, like, the smallest, it looks like he's killing people with a paring knife.
The deaths were weird because it was like get really quiet, like you're saying, or they make a little noise like, and then the reaction to that first killing, well, I guess it was the second at like that whole Christmas party that had the shrunken head guy and everybody's dancing. Like that was kind of like a fun scene. It was so goofy and wild. But then when he actually gets stabbed through the back of his head and the spear comes out of his mouth, the reaction from the audience, they're sort of like just shaking their heads like, oh, that's a damn shame. Like no one was actually like screaming in horror or ran out of the room. Everybody's like, oh, Poor Danny.
Right, because they're British and they like have a stiff upper lip.
Yes,
So,
very reserved.
yes, even during the murders. Now, for people listening to this, if you just heard Ryan say, "Hey, shrunken head guy," I don't recall that in the summary. That's because it's irrelevant to the plot. It's so hard to describe this movie because there are so many random moments that are meaningless, that there's no context for, there's no explanation of why they're happening. Over and over again, you just watch the movie going, wait, what in the hell am I looking at? Why is that happening? Or they cut to something and you don't know why they cut to it.
Someone had said that Don't Open Till Christmas is a minor masterpiece of inept filmmaking.
Yes. Yeah, that should be on the box. The other things I find funny about it is at some point somebody made the decision that the music that they would have like throughout some of the killings, like to build up the fear, was an organ. And it is the least frightening instrument. Well, wait, second least frightening instrument. I'll come back to what the actual least frightening instrument is, because that also shows up in this movie.
I did love this soundtrack, though. It was all over the place. You had like synth, like 80s. You had like, then the one scene inexplicably was like this old school Phantom of the Opera organ.
Right,
they had some rock and roll, like kind of punk, but it was also cut really poorly too, that the music and soundtrack didn't always seem to line up quite correctly with what was happening in the scene. It was definitely a rough film.
Cliff's job, these people are like in their late 30s, maybe early 40s. Cliff has a job. His job is street musician. Now, I know when you hear me say street musician, you think, oh, like drums or like guitar. No.
Man, he's rocking that flute.
And the actor didn't know how to play the flute. So they just pipe and flute. Like, of all the possible instruments, if the guy can't play it anyway, couldn't you pick absolutely any other instrument than flute? And if that isn't insane enough, his girlfriend comes with him. I guess he's making so much flute money that he can't just leave a hat in front of him. She actually has to hold the hat. So these are two full-time employed people who are making a living. I guess when you get free healthcare, Ryan, this is the kind of jobs that you can be afforded. Professional street flute player.
The busking might be more lucrative over there in London. But, you know, it did seem like maybe Cliff was hurting a little bit because then he tried to rope Kate into shooting a porn movie with his buddy who you know, he's like, just thought it would be a good idea to bring his girlfriend to set. And then once the Santa Claus costume comes out, Kate freaks out and runs out of there because, well, her dad was wearing a Santa Claus costume and was killed by the shrunken head murderer at the beginning of the movie. So, you know, there's some hard feelings between them as a result of this.
So Kate is a little irritated that her boyfriend says out of the blue, hey, would you shoot this like porn scene? But when they suggest she wear a Santa outfit while shooting the porn scene, that is the last straw because her dad was killed moments ago in the movie. It is so weird. I feel like it sounds like we are leaping all over the place, but we are describing this movie scene by scene by scene. It's the most random collection of insanity. When you watch this movie, did you have a favorite scene? Was there any part of it that you watched and went, well, this is clearly the highlight of the movie?
You know, the highlight of the movie, honestly, was the Santa Claus killings.
Everyone?
If you pull those out of the movie, this would be an unwatchable film, but that's kind of what keeps you going.
Right. You just want to see another Santa Claus get stabbed.
Yeah. So they pepper those throughout, and some, you know, or whatever. But you had the chestnut roasting Santa at the beginning, where inexplicably Sleazy Santa Claus, is on a dark alley roasting chestnuts, and the murderer sneaks up on him and not only stabs him, but then proceeds to roast his face on the chestnut grill.
Yes.
And then kind of leaves him there, and he bursts into flames. Did you catch that dialogue with the Detective Sergeant Powell and his boss? And he had a theory that this could have been a coincidence, and there could have been. It was like, do you think there's some rivalry over chestnut vending roasting? And he's like, never mind.
The chestnut roasting gang. Yeah.
Yes.
These detectives are really on the case.
Do you think, sir, we might have a psychopath on our hands?
This one was unexpected, but apparently it's legendary, is the no penis Santa, when Santa's taking a leak in the bathroom.
Yeah.
He gets castrated by the killer.
Right.
Wow. Wow. Another one was the London Dungeon Santa. The drunken Santa, he gets chased by the killer into, it seemed to be a torture chamber, wax museum place, and the serial killer's chasing him around in there.
Yeah.
That was kind of terrible music and shot really poorly. You kept wondering, how's this guy getting away? Like, that was entertaining.
Yes, because the guy who was trying to run away kept running into these wax statues or plastic dummies of people like with, blood on them or who were tortured. So the scene, I mean, it could have been played for laughs. It was like such a weird random context to have this murder take place. And the other funny thing about that scene is the killer pulls out two weapons that they don't look like the most intimidating weapons I've ever seen. Not even sure you could kill people with these things.
Yeah. It looked like when we were in metal shop in like 7th grade and the teacher wasn't paying attention and you started fabricating your own throwing stars or like weapons of destruction that were like sort of made of tin. Like that's what it looks like.
Right. I mean, that knife looked like you could flip a pancake with it. It looked like more like a spatula than an actual weapon that was intimidating. Every single choice in this movie is weird or confusing or inexplicable. Just one after another. And the amount of random insanity of this movie is what keeps you going.
That's a good way to describe it.
I can't say this is my favorite scene, but a really good example. It's hard to communicate without seeing the movie how weird some of the line readings are and some of the script choices. But to me, the pinnacle of that was when one of the Santas, this like pervy old man Santa, goes into a strip club.
Oh, the peep show Santa.
Yes, he goes into a peep show, and so there's a girl behind glass, and the conversation that the two of them have, I went back and watched it twice. The conversation between that pervy Santa and that girl.
It's my first time in this sort of place.
Me too.
Really? You see, I live with my mother.
So do I.
Does your mother know you work here?
She ought to. She owns it. I'm just filling in.
Oh, for another girl?
No, for my mother.
It's such a weird interaction. God, I found it fascinatingly odd.
But the dialogue, I thought it was interesting to watch this really poorly done film, but it got elevated because they all had British accents. That immediately makes them all seem smarter and gives it a little bit more of a European flair to it. But, that only went so far.
Right. And that girl who I'm talking about, the one that plays the stripper, she doesn't even have a name as a character. Her name is just Experience Girl. She's an important character because in theory, she is the last girl. Like she's the survivor of the movie, although the movie even makes that weird. I can't imagine someone watching this in the movie theater and feeling like they were getting their money's worth, unless what they paid for was just to be confused for 90 minutes. I have two favorite scenes. Neither one of them is exactly a killing scene. One of them is super tiny, but it really made me laugh out loud. There's a scene close to the very end where the killer has kidnapped the Experience Girl, who is the stripper, and he locks her up in a basement. He comes back and talks to her for a few times in the movie and brings her a sandwich at one point. And so they're chit-chatting. And Experience Girl convinces the killer to undo her chains so that she can eat her sandwich. And she promises to the killer that she's not going to do anything bad. And then the camera cuts to her crossing her fingers. I loved that detail because she's just been kidnapped and chained up by the psychopath, but she has the wherewithal and the moral turpitude to, if she's gonna lie, she's crossing her fingers so she doesn't get held to that. It's like in the afterlife. That tiny little detail of her crossing her fingers funny. And the camera like zooming in on her hand was so bizarre and hilarious to me. So that was like my second favorite scene. My most favorite scene, Carolyn Monroe.
Yes.
Like an hour into the movie, it suddenly becomes an 80s like rock song where they just bring out this woman who just sings an entire song on stage. And then in the background, you're supposed to think the killer's going after somebody, but they really lean into the music video part of it.
Don't open till Christmas with special guest star Carolyn Monroe.
Yes, I am. I'm coming
It's sort of like a 3-minute music video just dropped into the film. Yeah, totally random. This movie's all over the place.
The other scene that stands out to me is the movie seems to know that there's two things people are looking for in a movie like this. They're looking for a bunch of Santas getting stabbed, and then they're looking for a woman's boobs. That's what audiences want. Cliff has a buddy who's a photographer who shoots porn, and then one day they go over Cliff's house, and he's just taking photos of a topless woman. That's how they worked in that she's topless.
It did feel like they brought in that woman. I don't know if she was a centerfold or whatever, but her and Carolyn Monroe, who was the singer, it seemed like they just pitched, hey, we're going to bring you into this movie. You get to be naked and do more of what you do. And then Carolyn, we're going to bring you in, you get to sing your song. Mm-hmm. We're just going to drop that in the movie. So we've covered the bases of bloody deaths.
Right.
We got our nudity, and we've got a featured singer. Weird amalgam of pieces and parts that definitely are not a cohesive experience.
So the last 5 minutes of the movie, you find out why the killer is killing people at Christmas. And it cuts to, is it Giles or Giles?
We'll just call him Giles.
So it cuts to him as a kid at Christmas time, and he's got family all around him. He goes upstairs, and his dad is dressed as Santa Claus, and he's having sex. This is on Christmas while the family is downstairs. Giles, as a kid, sees his dad cheating on his mom. Then the mom comes upstairs and sees it also. And then does the dad kill the mom? Did you get what happened there?
It seems like he threw her down the steps. I don't know that he met the killer.
It's such a weird motion. You see the dad dressed as Santa wave his arm, and then you see woman fall downstairs.
It was shot so poorly, it was not even clear it was a flashback. Like, usually in some movies, there's a clear break or communication to the audience that, hey, we are shifting timelines. All of a sudden, you're in this different scene. It's really hard to track what's going on. Yes. Well, you described it very clearly. Yes. When you watch it, it is not clear.
And then I think Giles stabs his dad, right? That's the first Santa who's killed. That was the other thing I found fascinating about this kind of genre of killer who kills people on a particular holiday. Valentine's Day, Halloween, Christmas. In all these slasher movies that are built around a particular holiday, they feel like they have to explain, what is it about this holiday that is upsetting to the killer? And then there's a scene after that. This is the scene where I definitely had to look up and go, I don't understand what the hell I just watched. So it's the very last scene of the movie. You want to try to explain what is going on in this scene?
He's at his home. He's received that package earlier in the movie that was left at his house that said, don't open it until Christmas.
Yeah.
He's smoking the cigarette. He's got the package in hand.
This is Giles. This is the killer, right?
So Giles dropped off the gift, but it's Ian Harris, the main inspector, who was the older brother of Giles.
Right.
Takes the gift to the fireside, and he's unwrapping it. It's a music box that he opens, and it begins playing a Christmas song, and he's listening to it. He looks at it, puts it down on the counter, and then a few seconds later, it explodes. But again, shot so poorly. Basically, before the explosion has even gone off, his face is already charred with bad makeup, and he gets blown out of his chair and dies. The end.
I feel like people are going to listen to this and say, boy, Ryan and Shauna, you're not doing a good job describing this movie, but there are so many poorly conceived scenes that are hard to interpret. I watched it thinking, apparently anybody could make a movie, because if this movie could get made and make money, then, how hard could it be? This movie just really seems like it was made by teenagers, but they were not. These were professional adults who had made movies before, working at their professional capacity. This movie took 2 years to complete.
Spent years on it. Yeah. Oh, my God.
Imagine 2 years of your life, and this is the result.
It really just goes to show you don't really need a plot. You just need Santa's being killed with excessive gore and some boobs, and you're good to go.
That's the whole movie.
All right, so stabby ratings then. What do you got to serve up here on Don't Open Until Christmas?
People might be surprised that it actually was hard for me to decide what stabby rating to give it, because what was the last movie that I saw that I gave a 1 to? It was the movie that scared me.
Black Christmas.
Yes, Black Christmas, I found so upsetting, I gave it a 1 because I didn't ever want to see it again. This movie is not scary. It's just terrible. We've never decided whether or not a movie could get no stabbies. So, it's like a half a stabby.
Ow!
Wow.
Yes, and that's it. It's a very mild injury. I do not recommend this movie. I feel like we're having more fun talking about it than the movie. What stabby score would you give it?
I was thinking about this one versus Basket Case, which is clearly low budget, kind of sleazy filmmaking. But that story had some great depth and heart. There was a reason that got brought into our MoMA's collection. This movie will not be pulled into the MoMA archives. I can guarantee our audience that. I'm going to give it 1.5 stabs.
Wow, bold.
I just thought the Santa killings were so fun. That's really the only reason to watch this movie. It is a loose sketch of a film, and it's just peppered with these gruesome Santa killing gems, but they're done in a way that's like kind of sloppy, sleazy, and you have to like that type of film to even want to watch this. If that's not your jam, don't watch this movie.
But it's not even kind of fun to watch. Like, the thing I loved about Basket Case was how much pleasure I got out of every single choice the director of that movie made and all the characters made. This movie is just, you watch it with a big question mark above your head. The only context in which I could ever see seeing this movie again is if I was at a party and someone said, what is the worst Christmas movie you've ever seen? And I would say, oh, Don't Open Till Christmas. Everybody, let's pull up a chair. We're about to watch something that you're not going to believe was made by adults.
There might be, I didn't count them in terms of number of deaths, but it could be like, the 12 Days of Christmas. It could be the 12 Deaths of Santa. You could do a little like a 1 minute cut, and that's all you would ever need to see of this film. That was a great point, though, that you made before about lots of movies have chaos and drama behind the set, from budget cuts to, writers dropping on and off, directors coming and going. Sometimes you don't notice it. It's just part of the lore or the behind the scenes stuff. You're right, though. It shows up in every single frame of this film.
Yes.
It's all out there. The only other thing, I did appreciate that it wasn't quite as misogynistic as some other films where it was mostly dudes getting offed, and they spared like the nude Santa woman. Experienced girl lived, but then Kate did get killed by the serial killer.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point. The movie feels like less prurient in that sense. Like, it's not primarily focused on killing nubile young women or something. It's mostly guys dressed as Santa Claus.
That really seemed down on their luck. They're grimy. They're like totally drunk. They're covered in soot.
So that'll be useful for our listeners to know if seeing Santa Clauses get stabbed over and over and over again. And by the way, what you learn in this movie is Santa Clauses, they spill blood that is Campbell's soup, tomato soup colored. That is the brightest red blood. It's almost orange.
It's very festive.
Really shows up.
Yeah. Brings the season really to the forefront of this film.
We want to thank you for listening to this episode of Slashback Cinema. Hopefully we saved you from watching Don't Open Till Christmas. If you're looking for recommendations, we say just leave this present wrapped up under the tree. You don't have to open it at all.
Unless you really enjoy grimy Christmas stockings with sleazy stuff, this might be your jam.
I would be interested in, if people listen to this episode, if they want to hop on social. We got TikTok.
We got his Instagram. And also in the podcast notes, you can send us a text. Click on that. Yeah. It goes right to your phone. Let us know what you thought. If you hated it, you loved it, you saw this movie, let us know.
We may have oversold the film by talking about how terrible it is. I'd be fascinated to hear from anyone who saw this movie in the 80s or remembers it. Or if you go watch it now, what do you think of it? Is there anything redeemable about it? So that's it. Thanks for listening.